Welcome everyone. Today we're going to go over 10 tips to help you play squad. These tips can be helpful for anybody new to the game or someone just looking to see if there's anything else they could be adding to their gameplay. So if you're new or you want updates on new videos coming out, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, drop a comment down below with any tips you might want to see in a new video, and let's get to it. The first tip is something that everyone should be paying attention to, and that is the vehicle list, which you can find on any given layer by hitting caps lock and then hitting the vehicle icon in the top right of your map. The vehicle list is going to give you specific information about what vehicles are available on that layer to either given team, along with their ticket values, and it can also tell you which vehicles might be amphibious. So all this is pretty important because it narrows down what callouts need to be made on any given layer. Additionally, you'll be able to see the timer for certain vehicles on your team specifically. This is something you should check at the beginning of every round to understand the callouts and what you're up against from the enemy team. Now, all the vehicles you or the enemy have are dictated in the map voting. So on the map voting page, if you hit the information icon, you can get a bunch of intel about that map. For example, you can see how many objectives there will be across the map, not to mention a layout of where objectives could be. This is really important because then you can start planning ahead for where you need to be on a random advanced and secure layer. You're also going to get an idea of what factions and unit types are available for that layer. Some of that information should be helpful when trying to pick what faction or unit you're going to roll out with. Now you can always click that information icon in any of the factions you're voting for. You can then see the vehicles that you're voting for to see how it aligns with the map you've chosen, along with any special characteristics, commander abilities, or fob emplacements that your unit has access to during the round. Once the opposing team selects their unit, you can also see that information for what they've chosen. So my next tip is specific to the game modes Random, Advanced and Secure, and Advanced and Secure. In this game mode, both your team and the enemy team needs to capture flags, typically leaving some middle points as the main area of confrontation. To get there, you need to back cap, which means capping the flags up to those middle points. And it's important to understand how quickly you can cap those flags based on the amount of people you have there. You can tell the speed of your capture by the chevrons up in your top right corner. You can get up to 5 chevrons, which is the fastest speed, whereas 1 chevron is obviously the slowest. If there are no chevrons, then you aren't capping. For back cap flags, typically one person is going to equal a chevron. So you want at least 5 people there to get the cap as quickly as possible so your team can move quickly towards those middle points. However, if you're attacking an enemy flag, you need at least 3 people to initiate that capture and get 1 chevron on that point, which translates to needing about 7 people on that capture point to be able to cap at full speed. Keep in mind, you can also tell if you are capping a point or if an enemy is capping the next objective by checking your map. If the point is flashing with a blue outline, that means your team is capping. If it's flashing with a red outline, the enemy team is capping that objective. This is another tip specific to Random, Advanced and Secure and Advanced and Secure. So as your team is leaving your main and capping flags up to the middle point where you expect to meet the enemy, there's one thing that can actually happen to slow down progress, and that's a double neutral. Double neutral means that you are attacking the enemy position and you have neutralized that flag. Meanwhile, the enemy has attacked your defensive position and neutralized that flag as well. But there is one sneaky way to help continue progress. So while you may be able to maintain your position on the attack point, there may be an enemy presence on your defensive point. But how can you offset this and continue your progression? It's pretty simple. You just need 3 people within radius of cap on the defensive point to actually capture that objective, as long as the attack point remains neutral. Many folks will call this sneak capping. It's basically where you send those 3 guys in not to fight, but just to get in radius, get the cap done, and progress your team forward. Now, if you have any hours in squad, you're probably familiar with what a hab is, which is basically your spawn or the enemy spawn that's set up off a forward operating base. If you're approaching an enemy hab, you can obviously deconstruct it with a shovel, but that can take some time. There's an alternative, which is called proxying the enemy hab. If you proxy an enemy hab, it's going to disable the ability for the enemy to spawn there. You can proxy the hab by having a certain amount of guys within a certain radius of the hab itself. Starting all the way back at 90 meters, you need at least 9 players within that radius to disable the ability for the enemy team to spawn there. This scales down with distance, so at 20 meters, you just need 2 people. And this gives you the ability to approach an enemy hab without worrying about the enemy respawn happening for a little bit at least, and allows you time to get people into position to be able to deconstruct that hab. Now keep in mind, the enemy can do this to your own hab, which brings me to my next tip. Let's say the enemy finds your hab, disables it, digs it down, so you are unable to spawn there. The next thing they're likely to look for is your radio that the hab is built off of. If you're unaware, the radio is worth 20 tickets, so it's a significant value to your team to maintain these and not lose them. So once they have found your radio, they're going to work to deconstruct it. And here's what you can do that not everyone is aware of. Once the enemy team digs down the radio or destroys the radio enough, it goes on a bleed timer. The fob bleed out time is 75 seconds. Before those 75 seconds are up, you have two options. You can either dig up the radio and restore the condition of the radio so that you can continue to use the radio, or perhaps you sneak in and finish digging down the radio, completely deleting it from the map and the game, and you end up saving yourself 20 tickets. So the point is that you don't actually have to dig up the radio and restore it and then dig it back down to delete it to save the 20 tickets. You just dig it down. So if it's on bleed and you have no way of protecting it, sneak somebody in, dig down the radio, save the 20 tickets. One important tip for any member of the squad is to make sure that logistics vehicles don't stay near radios. Because to set up a radio, you have to have the logistics vehicle within a certain radius. It's often that the logistics vehicle just gets left there after you've dumped your supply, giving a pretty good giveaway to enemies as to where that radio is by having a big truck parked next to it. So whether you're leading or if you're just a member of a squad, take it upon yourself to actually move the logistics vehicle. But let's go one step further. You need to be careful where you move it. First of all, you don't necessarily want to move it closer to the hab. You may give away the position of the hab itself. Maybe you'll get closer to an enemy objective. Within a couple hundred meters, the enemy may then be able to hear the LOGI truck, giving away your position. So I typically recommend to move the LOGI away from both the radio and the hab. One extra tip is to actually try to make sure that you turn the vehicle. Don't just drive in a straight line. There's a lot of times where more advanced players will look at the direction that the logistics vehicle is facing and then follow a line behind that logistics truck to try to find the radio. So when you're going to park the logistics truck, just try to make a slight turn or angle the vehicle so that it is not in a direct line from the radio. The next tip applies to orientation with your compass. 0 on your compass is always going to point north. 90 is east, 180 is south, and 270 is west. If you put any time to squad, you know that communication, callouts, and things like that are extremely important for how this game operates. So it's helpful to know this because it's going to bridge the gap between different styles of callouts and different information being thrown at you, especially in a firefight. Now, speaking of firefight, there is an additional aspect to the compass that you should be aware of. The two bars that move horizontally below your compass actually indicate your stability. The wider those horizontal bars are away from each other, the less stability you have when aiming. You can use this mark at the top to give you some idea about how stable you are when you're about to pull up your rifle, or to be able to better time when you're going to pull that rifle to engage in a firefight. Because you'll be able to incorporate some idea of how much sway may be tied to the weapon when you go about aiming. Now, if you are in some sort of firefight and you need to throw a grenade, let's talk about the two ways you can do that. By holding the left click when you pull the grenade, it's going to do an overarm throw, giving you a little more velocity and distance on that particular throw. You can also use your left hand's thumb to help guide where you are aiming the grenade, giving you a little bit more accuracy in some of your throws. But what if you need a little less distance attached to the grenade throw? Instead of holding left click, you can hold right click on your mouse and actually do an underarm throw. This could be dangerous because the grenade is not going to roll as far as normal. But this could come in handy if you're trying to lob a grenade up to a balcony above you or through a window. This is much more useful instead of just yeeting a grenade over a building. So your left mouse button is going to be your long range throw. Your right mouse button will be your short range underarm throw. Now that you've thrown all your grenades, let's talk about our next tip, which has to do with infantry fighting vehicles and ammunition. IFVs can hold up to 600 ammo. Like other vehicles, this can be used to resupply soldiers or fobs out in the field. By holding F and going to the ammo icon, soldiers can choose specific things to reload on or rearm all. But IFVs also give the option for soldiers to change their kit. Unlike other vehicles in squad, the IFV actually gives you the ability to switch to any kit that is currently available to you in your squad. This can be really handy if you're out in the field and you just need a simple rearm, or if you need to switch kits based on the situation you're running into. So there's 10 tips to help you in squad. Obviously, there's a bunch of other stuff I could list. This is actually the second iteration of this video because I felt like it needed some updates and some tweaks to things that were more pertinent. So if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of the next video that might help you in learning about squad. Obviously, like the video, leave a comment down below with your thoughts if there's anything that I missed, and I'll catch you next time.